7, 8, 9, 10. 6, 7, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 9, 10. Check 1, 2.
What did Minnesota have? 408. Okay, how are rushing? Rushing total 201. Yep. They were 203.
We're going to put them on that back one.
294. 205.
Now you should be able to hear me. I'm sorry about that all. Trying to do this on the fly. This Minnesota postgame room, to say the least, is tiny. Tiny, tiny, tiny. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Give me... I am not muted. I mean...
7, 8, 9, 10. Mic test. Mic test. 1, 2.
Test, test, test. Test, test,
1,
test.
2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7.
Can you hear
January,
me
February,
through
March, April, May, June,
the
July,
microphone?
August,
Can you hear
September,
me? Can you
October,
hear me?
November, December.
All right.
Check
Good,
1,
good,
2.
good, good. I think you're caught up to the lag
1,
right
2,
now. It
3,
is hot
4.
in this room. It is small in this room. Ohio State
1, 2, 3,
45-31
4,
winners
4, 5.
at Minnesota. Certainly, I will start over, Christopher. I'm doing the best that I can here. Oh, you know, you're not here for me. You're here for the post game. We're going to hear from Ryan Day and the victorious Buckeyes here. So we'll have that going. Again, we're just kind of shoestringing this. It'll be a lot better at Ohio State when we're able to do this under normal circumstances. All right, good. I'm glad everybody is able to hear this. Minnesota certainly was tough there, Jordan. Or, I'm sorry, Jeffrey in there. So, you know, it was not the type of game that I think a lot of fans expected. But, you know, it was right on the line. 14 points. You know, your over ends up coming in and play here. Ohio State wins on the money line. Not that I keep track of any of that type of stuff, but, you know, for what it's worth. You know, no Cameron Brown. Seven Banks didn't play. You know, obviously, you know, we saw a lot of rotation, and I certainly read on social media and on the Scoop message board, Ask the Insiders, there was a lot of anger about just how the rotations were working, and, you know, it was, I mean, Ohio State did not have a great outing in terms of slowing down the run. Mo Abraham ends up rushing for 160-some yards before he leaves with, you know, I don't want to say what the injury is because I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor, but a lot of people seem to believe it might be an Achilles injury. On the Fox broadcast, we saw a video of him going up the tunnel with a boot on. You know, we hope the best for the Minnesota running back. That's a kind of a season-ending injury when it comes to Achilles. I mean, it's a long and difficult rehab, so we certainly wish the best for Mo and hope that it's something less serious and that he is able to bounce back. But, you know, we just don't know. C.J. Stroud, a bit of a mixed bag. He certainly looked like a first-time starter in some regards. I know there was a point where he had 10 targets to Garrett Wilson and only 5 completions. You know, he shorted a couple throws, he airmailed a couple throws, but he was able to make big plays when he needed to as well. And, you know, you got to give Ohio State a lot of credit for being able to do that. So with that being said, you know, a big outing, a big first game for the Buckeyes. We're just waiting for Ryan Day to come out here. The press room has filled up at this point. Let me take a shot of the scene that we've got here. We're just waiting right now at this point for Ryan Day to take the podium, and then when we're done with all of the players, hope to grab Tony and Tom for some quick thoughts, and then from there we will then go back to the press box, and we will have our usual post-game coverage from Tony and Tom. Looking forward to that. Let me bounce back to my shot right here. Hey, there I am again. No, but again, we're waiting here. What do you think about Trevion Henderson? Quite the debut for him. What about Pork Chop? What about Mayan Williams? He had that 70-some yard touchdown early, but even there, Ohio State got into a bit of a rotation game. You know, bring in Master Teague, mixed success there. You know, we go and we see Henderson before he really kind of blew up. We saw Marcus Crowley late in the game. So the running backs they brought with them, they ended up getting out there. We did not see a rotation as much at wide receiver, unless it was really late. Once I'd come down to the post-game room, I didn't see Marvin Harrison Jr., Jaden Ballard, Emeka Egbuka. What about JT Tuimoloau? He ends up getting out there before Jack Sawyer. Remember, Jack Sawyer was in Columbus. Was always in Columbus. He's a Pickerington native, but he was at Ohio State way before JTT. JTT didn't commit until July 4th. And JTD ends up getting out there before him. And, it sometimes goes to show that you just don't know until you know what's going to happen with these young guys. I'm getting some weird looks from people as I'm sitting here talking about all this. We saw Jack come out there later. One of the biggest plays that I'm going to remember from this game is the strip sack by Zach Harrison. Haskell Garrett picks up the ball, gets a big defensive touchdown. That gave Ohio State a couple score lead because it was really a lot of ebb and flow back and forth. It was very difficult to, Ohio State was not able to get a lot of drives and get Minnesota off the field. Minnesota did a good job. They certainly were able to attack Ohio State's young secondary, a lot younger than what we expected it to be off the bat because of the fact of no Seven Banks. He was here, he traveled. I saw him, he was in huddles, but I didn't see him. No Cameron Brown, who was listed on the availability chart as being out. We also knew that Harry Miller was on the availability chart as being out, so Luke Wepler ends up jumping in, and he has a good game. The weather kind of turned later in the game. Became a wet track. You wonder what's going to happen with a center who's really starting his first game, a quarterback who's really starting his first game. I'm looking at my camera battery. I wish I would have changed it before we started here, but we're going to roll with it. We're going to do the best that we can. I see all your comments coming through. I'm one-man banding this right now until post-game starts, so I can't punch them in. I think it's going to be a little bit of a better situation when Ohio State returns home next week to host Oregon. Familiar post-game room, familiar setup, much larger setup than what we've got here. We've got a lot of cameras and a lot of cameramen on like half a riser. It's a tight fit. Ohio State's beat media just is huge, just in terms of the amount of media members that it travels. When Iowa travels, I don't think they travel nearly as many people. I'm kind of reading some of your comments. Chalky White said that the Ransom hit was fire, hell of a play. Ransom laid the lumber there. I knew Ransom was a big hitter, and we certainly saw it there. Again, we are still waiting for Ryan Day to take the podium, and the Buckeyes, victorious Buckeyes, 45-31 winners here at Minnesota, 1-0. Ohio State continues its streak of winning season openers, has not lost one since 1999. The kickoff classic at the Meadowlands to Miami. It has been it's been a long time coming since they've lost one. This certainly wasn't Ohio State playing Youngstown State or somebody from the MAC or Bishop Sycamore. It was a good test. It's not the first time that Ohio State has had to open on the road against a Big Ten opponent. Ohio State did the same a couple years ago against Indiana. I think it gives them a little bit of an advantage in terms of going into this Oregon game and trying to figure that one out. But I'm going to say this: Mo Ibrahim is probably one of the best backs Ohio State's going to face this year. Period. At least until whatever the postseason entails for them. So they got a lot of things to work on. They are far from a perfect product at this point. I'm walking to look at what my batteries are at. I'm still at 46%. I should be able to get through this post game. Mario asking about the scoop on Banks and Brown. I think I had a lot of people ask me if we'd heard if it were anything COVID related. That is not the impression that I've been led. I've heard flu for one of them. I've heard ankle for another. Again, not information that I personally have been able to confirm myself. So I'm just saying that I've heard it from our great staff at Scoop. So we'll just have to kind of go from there. Yardvark's Lawn Care Secretary is banged up. Cody Simon was the only good linebacker. Cody Simon, I think, is a tremendous player. I think it's going to be I think he's going to be really good. I think it was kind of an up and down day a little bit for Taraja. He made some plays. I think that, everybody kind of had, some bad moments in terms of on the defense. It just, it was far from a clean game. But again, Ohio State Sports Information had a tweet that went out about, I think it was 7 players made their first career start on defense. Some of them were just going to be basically out of the standard attrition that you have in terms of college football, and some of it was predicated by the fact that some guys were unable to go. So, we need to see from there. I just saw CJ Stroud out in the hallway, and I think we're getting him, so we're going to change this around right now.
How you doing?
Describe your emotions, how nervous were you, and assess your play. First half was shaky, and then you got it together.
Yeah, man. I mean, all glory to God. First half, like you said, I mean, first game jitters. I mean, they're a great team. Minnesota has a great defense. Thank God I have great teammates. I mean, they encouraged me. So, I mean, that's kind of what happened in the second half.
And how much of a security blanket is it to have receivers like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, those are 2 of the best receivers in the country, the best receivers in the country. So, I mean, thank God they're on my team.
We'll go front row, Austin. CJ, when did you feel like those jitters went away, and what was working there in the second half, maybe once you got comfortable?
I mean, everything that we called was great. It's just, I mean, some things just don't go the way you want them to, and that's kind of was the first half. I mean, the time of possession was kind of crazy. I mean, they held the ball, so I feel like we were off the field for a while in the first half. I mean, kind of got cold in there. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's raining sideways, and I mean, so like I feel like that had to do with it a little bit, but I mean, we got the win.
We'll go second row, Jared. CJ, obviously you haven't watched a lick of tape yet, but as you came off the field, where did you feel like, especially at halftime, as you came off the field, where did you feel like you weren't quite hitting? And then how do you feel as you walk off second half? Where did you succeed?
I mean, in the game of football, you have your ups and downs. I mean, everything doesn't go the way it's supposed to. I mean, I felt in the first half, I just my mind wasn't right. I mean, I was kind of all over the place a little bit. So I mean, talking to my teammates, praying a lot, just trying to lock back in. And I mean, I don't feel like I did terrible, but I mean, I definitely didn't do as best as I could in the first half. No, no, sir. No, yeah.
We'll go right here, Stephen Mead.
CJ, kind of to that point, I mean, the pick, can you just take us through what happened there, the miscommunication with Chris Olave?
Yeah, man. The look that we thought we were gonna get, we didn't get. Kind of forced it on my end. Should have just handed the ball off, but I mean, like I said, things in football happen like that sometimes. So we went through perseverance in this game, a lot of adversity, and we ended up coming out with the dub.
You're talking basically you have to settle down.
Exactly.
What happened? Did it take till halftime? Did it take the second quarter? When did you kind of see yourself settle down and kind of, okay, I'm here now, I'm in the game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like right when I came in the locker room, everybody was encouraging me, telling me that I can do it. My teammates had belief in me, and I mean that was the biggest thing.
We'll go right here to Rob Oliver.
Have you heard from coaches that you don't have to win a game, you've got these weapons and you just have to get them the ball? Is that part of the mindset that don't do too much? I think you just talked about that a little bit.
I mean, yeah, I mean I have great teammates, but I think I'm a great player too. I mean, maybe the first half didn't show that, but I know I did my best in the second, and I feel like I did really good in the second. I mean, like I said, in the game of football, you have ups and downs, and they believe in me. You know what I'm saying? So they put me in a situation to get them the ball, and I mean that's a big opportunity for me. That's a big task. So I feel like I did that.
Did the game plan change at all for you? Coaches try to simplify things or just get it, you threw a screen pass or a swing pass there, I know. Anything change game plan-wise?
No, sir. Coach Day, I mean, he told me no matter how I'm playing, good or bad, he has trust in me and he believes in me. So, I mean, just having a head coach like that, I mean, it's a blessing from God, and he's a great man for that.
All the way in the back, Clay.
CJ, how big a lift was the play by Zach Harrison and Haskell Garrett to go up 10 points? Right?
Yeah, that was an amazing play. I mean, not even just that play, this whole game. They definitely have had a great impact on this game and getting this win.
Go right here in the front, Adam Brittenberg.
CJ, you mentioned the belief coaches have in you. How did that show as the game went on, especially
especially with the big plays? Did they still want you to challenge them?
Yeah, I mean, before we started the game, they told me we're gonna have ups and downs, and opening up with a tough opponent in a conference game with Minnesota. I mean, we kind of knew what was up. We knew that we might have some first half trouble, but I mean, we all came together, and that's why we call each other a brotherhood.
We'll go Bill Landis right behind him.
CJ, Coach Day said a couple of times that one of the things he liked about you during camp was that when you did make mistakes, you seemed to learn from them, you seemed to bounce back in a positive way from them. Do you feel like you kind of put that on display tonight? They're not playing maybe as well as you wanted to in the first half.
Yes, sir. Definitely, I feel like my whole life has been perseverance. I mean, things don't go the way that you always want them to, and I mean, thanks to God that that I've been through a lot. So I mean, that just helped me in that situation. I got my poise back, and when it was ready to go in the second half.
And when you guys dialed up that, I guess it was a screen to Trey, it seemed to work out perfectly, and I'm wondering, like, at what point did you know he was going to score?
I mean, that was a great call by coach. I mean, they kind of on third down, they have funky looks. I mean, they run around, and I mean, my read was definitely it wasn't simple, but it wasn't hard. I mean, I just had to get the ball over the defensive end, and I mean, Trey made a great play, great cutback. I mean, he's going to be a hell of a player.
Right here, Doug.
CJ, having a game like this where you come out in the second half and play the way you did after maybe not doing what you wanted to do in the first half, what will that do for you next week against Oregon and down the line now that you've been through something like that?
Yeah, it's a great learning experience. I mean, I just talked to Coach Wilson and Coach Day, and I mean they're happy with how I played and how I handled my adversity. I feel like I kept my head up, I stayed positive, and my teammates, they just kept egging me on. And going into the Oregon week, I mean, you never know what can happen. It can happen again, but it's all about what you're gonna do when you get punched in the mouth.
We'll go second row, Dan Hope.
CJ, just to have that interception in the first half and then to kind of come back in the second half and settle things down. I mean, how much do you think that specifically was kind of an important moment for you to be able to move forward and bounce back when you have a mistake like that?
I mean, yeah, mistakes happen. Definitely, you can't stick on it. You got to keep going. I mean, you got to just keep going. I mean, the past is the past. You can't do nothing about it. I mean, if you sit there and soak, it's going to soak into you. You know what I'm saying? So, definitely just had to move on and be positive about the situation.
We got Coach Day ready for you. So one last question, Joey Kaufman.
CJ, you were able to take some deep shots down the field. Is that a belief you have in yourself? Is it something the coaching staff talked in during this game?
Yes, sir. I mean, we knew that with their structure of their defense, we were going to be able to take some shots, and I think that's a very strong suit of my game. I think I can throw the ball down the field really well. Definitely got some work to do with other throws. I mean, just kind of wasn't feeling it in the first half, and second half came, I just was feeling those throws again. So.
At one point, too, you came down on your shoulder. It looked like. How did that feel after that, and how did you feel recovering?
Yeah, man. I think I haven't played football in like 2 years, and got tackled in 2 years. So, yeah, I felt that one a little bit, but I'm okay. I'm good.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Right over here, all the way at this end of the locker room, all the way at this end and the other end.
Coach, want to make an opening statement or just go to questions?
Yeah, opening statement.
Really proud of the way our team played in the second half, and especially, in that fourth quarter. I thought that we learned a lot from this experience. To say that I'm surprised with the way it played out, I'm not. We played a lot of young guys on the road, conference game, first time playing with fans in a long time. Quarterback who hadn't thrown a college pass before. But the way we rallied and played, especially in that second half, we got a lot to build on here, and very excited coming out of that locker room.
Open them up right here, Austin.
Right, you said you're not surprised. When you look at that first half, was it feeling out? Was it trying to get your feet back in football? How would you describe what was happening there?
Yeah, no, I thought we came out on offense that one drive, hit that big, that big run, which was great, and jump up early, and then, Noah gets that field goal, which obviously you want 3 points. I mean, you want a touchdown, but we get 3 points, And then, it's hard when the time of possession goes the other way with Minnesota. I mean, they do a great job. PJ does a really good job, and they play complementary football. And there was a point there in the second quarter where, we just couldn't seem to get the ball back, couldn't get off the field on defense. And so there were some new guys in there feeling it out, and sometimes runs, instead of going for 1 or 2, they went for 3 or 4, and they stayed on schedule, hit some passes. And then it took a little while, I think, for us to get in a rhythm on offense with CJ. But, that's his first game ever. I mean, that was his first pass. It was the first play of the game, ever. So there's a lot going on there. And so when you go into situations like that, that it may be a little bit murky early on, and that's what happened.
Right next door, Steve.
Yeah, Coach, I want to ask you about CJ. He admitted here a minute ago that he didn't feel like he was locked in at all in the first half. He was kind of struggling, getting his bearings. But it seemed like whatever you guys said to him at halftime, teammates settled him down. The second half made some big plays.
Yeah, well, you don't just walk out at Ohio State at quarterback and it just, you go out there and throw 3 or 4 touchdown passes and call it a day in this conference. Minnesota's a very good team. PJ does an excellent job. That's a very well coached, hard playing team. And going on the road is not easy in this conference to get wins. And so it doesn't just happen. And, I think for him, there was a lot of things he was doing for the first time. And when that happens, it takes some time. Now, you got to give him a lot of credit. I mean, there were a couple times where things weren't really going well and missed some passes, but he fought through it. And he and I had a conversation early on that we're going to keep swinging no matter what happens. And we're not going to play it close to the vest. That's not the way we do it here. And he responded. But I think really it was the guys around him. I think when you look at the defensive score that we got, that was huge. But then the guys up front, Chris, Garrett, I mean, those were big plays. And then obviously the play with Trey down on that third down was big.
Over here to the left, Bill.
Yeah, the defense, as you alluded to, first of all, you played a lot of guys. Was that the intention to play that many guys, and how did you kind of assess the performance?
Yeah, I got to look at the film and see. I mean, they ran the ball really well and controlled the game a little bit. So we'll look at it. But like you said, there was a lot of guys who played a lot of football. So we have an opportunity now. We recruited a lot of young players, and we lost those 4 linebackers. And because of that, and you could see that we played, we matched some personnel a little bit differently this game. And now we're going to have to go back and assess and really get a feel for that because, when you're going in scrimmages and practice, you get a good feel for things, but you don't really know until you get into a game. And I think it's going to sort itself out a little bit, but we do like playing depth, and guys who deserve to play are going to.
Over here to the right, Adam.
Yeah, Ryan, you mentioned keep swinging for a young quarterback. What does that approach do, especially when you obviously have a lot of guys who can help them out and extend the field the way you do?
Yeah, I mean, I told them early on there's no expectations going in. You might throw 4 interceptions, you might throw 4 touchdowns. I don't know what's going to happen. Again, you don't just, I know everyone thinks you just walk out there and you're going to, throw for 300 yards and a bunch of touchdowns. It doesn't just work that way. There's a lot of things for a young quarterback to process who has never played. I wish last year that we had those 7 games that we didn't play where he had played, 150 to 200 snaps and thrown the ball. He didn't have any of that. Not one snap. I shouldn't say not one snap. He had a few snaps, but not one pass. Just a couple plays here and there. So usually this is a very unique situation for somebody who has really zero experience to go into a conference game on the road like this against a good team. I mean, this is a team who was top 10 in the country before last year. So, but yeah, very, very impressed with the way he just kept swinging.
Right behind him, Bill.
Ryan, how close was Seven Banks being able to play, and do you think he and Cam Brown could both play next week?
Yeah, I hope so. We had Seven ready, kind of an emergency role, and we're looking forward to getting those guys healthy to play next week.
Right behind him, Nathan.
Just go back to how many guys you played on defense. Like, I don't know. Do you guys not know yet who your best guys are there? Like, are you still trying to? I know you're not trying guys out if you're playing a game against a conference opponent, but are you still trying to figure out who the guys are you can rely upon?
It's close. We have a lot of depth, and so we're playing a lot of depth right now. And maybe it sorts out a little bit differently as we watch the film and guys solidify some spots. But until then, it was really close in a lot of positions, and we'll have to look at it and see if maybe we need to have a little more continuity in certain positions. But if when it was that close, guys deserve to play, then we're going to play depth, and I think that's going to serve us well. Certainly down the road. I think when you start with maybe a non-conference game and, you can get some guys into the game in the second half, it's a little different when you start with a conference game. And we knew that coming in. The whole goal here was to go 1-0, and now the next goal is to go 2-0. And then we come up for air and figure out what's next because it was a one-game season here, and we didn't care what the score was. And it's going to be the same thing next week. And then we'll kind of come up for air and figure it all out.
Right behind him, Nathan.
How long expected about Harry Miller, and how did you feel like Luke did, especially I guess considering the circumstances and the conditions, and maybe not having that much time?
I thought he did an excellent job, stepping in a big way. There's another young guy that has very, very little experience, handled the weather, handled the calls, handled the environment, the fans, and we'll see how he grades out. But I thought he handled everything really, really well.
Where we have to play, do you know what the situation is?
It's more that's more day to day right now. Yeah.
Over here, Rob Aller.
Ryan, you talked about bounce back after the interception. You never know where it's going to go.
Right.
How happy are you the way he responded? And was part of that you talking to him?
I told him going in that something like this was going to happen, and you better start. You got to deal with it before you get into that environment, because if you're trying to figure that out and figure out your feelings and your emotions in the game, it's not good. So, one of the things that we talked about going in was that whatever those expectations are, like just throw them out the window, and we're going to have to be resilient. And I was impressed with it. It wasn't a great read, and it wasn't a great throw.
Go all the way to the back. Just going to do two more questions with Coach.
Just the one thing I just wanted to say though, in that situation for him, you can say as many things as you want in practice, and you can go against the scout team, but until that actually happens, and you actually see the consequence for what you do, that's when you learn, and that was a learning experience.
Way in the back. Play.
Ryan, what's the impact of a defensive touchdown tonight? Harrison and Garrett double team.
I thought that was probably the difference in the game, and then some of the explosive plays on offense, certainly. But that anytime you get a defensive score, whether it's a block punt or something like that flips the scoreboard, it really is a huge game changer.
How'd the sideline react? Could you tell
Yeah, I thought, again, our sideline, I thought the energy in that, especially in that third to fourth quarter there, was as good as I've been around. It was fun.
Okay, Coach, thank you very much. We're going to talk about that defensive score right now. We've got Haskell.
There he is.
Sit on the inside chair if you don't mind. All right, we'll open it up. I want to try to get some guys that didn't get to get Coach first. Dan, you want to lead off? Okay.
Haskell, just to be out there with so many different guys on defense tonight, just curious, what was that like from your perspective to kind of have so many different players in the game on your defense?
That's what camp is for. We actually had a full year and a full camp, and we developed that camaraderie and that chemistry amongst each other. So it's new faces, but still the same defense.
And we're going to have Zach Harrison join Haskell. Go ahead, Bill.
Haskell, you have what I would consider now a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown. How would you describe your versatility?
Really, it's just I was in the right place at the right time, and when my number was called, I was just there, and I wouldn't have done what I did without this guy. So
we're going to go over here to Stephen Means.
Zach, you just want to break down your trip Zach?
I just got off the ball and used my hands, used my technique, and just bend the edge, just saw the quarterback, and I was like, I'm gonna just hit him and try to get the ball out, and I did that, and bro scored it. So.
And Coach Jay teaching you guys to go for the ball, go to try to hit the quarterback?
He always says sacks are good, but strip sacks change the game. We as a D-line, we take that to heart. In practice, but we're always working every time we come around the edge, just swipe at the ball, swipe at the ball, swipe at the ball, and it was just second nature, just kind of muscle memory at that point.
And go way in the back at the cameras. Is that you, Justin? Or Spencer, go ahead.
Are we live?
Zach, you watched your freshman year. You watched Chase make game-changing plays on a game-to-game basis. You've been compared to a lot of those guys before you. To have one of those game-changing plays now on your own, what does that feel like to maybe get a little bit of that weight off your shoulders?
I don't like to compare myself to anybody. I feel like I'm Zach Harrison. I'm trying to build my own legacy here at Ohio State, and I'm just happy we went 1-0. I'm happy I could help the team get a win, and that's all that matters to me.
Over here to the left, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Haskell, when you hear "fat man touchdown," is that offensive to you? Do you take pride in that, or do you you consider yourself a little more in shape than that?
I mean, it just shows that, big dudes can run. And we got nimble feet nowadays, not back in the day, it used to just be big and just plug up space, but I think there's an evolution of linemen that are athletic and we can run, so it's whatever.
Anybody else over here? Front row, Austin? Yep.
Zach, that strip there, that seems like the kind of play a year ago you guys talked about was just like maybe half a second out of your reach. What's the difference for you or for that freshman unit as a whole that tells you can keep doing that more and turning them into what you want?
Just practicing hard and just working the technique in practice, and whatever happens in practice happens in games. And so during practice, I've had a few plays where I could have got strip sacks. Quarterbacks aren't live, but it showed up in the game, and that's something that, Coach Jay preaches and all the DNs are capable of doing is making game-changing plays like that.
Over to the left, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Zach, you mentioned Coach Jay had said strip sacks can change the game. Do you feel like that play changed the momentum?
I mean, it definitely brought some energy to the sideline, and it added 7 points to our score. So I feel like, it definitely had an impact on the game.
Over to the left, back row, Tony Gerben, Buckeye Scoop.
Zach, how do you think the pass rush did tonight?
Good, but we have a lot of room to improve. Once we hop on the film, we're gonna see that there was a lot of plays that we could have taken advantage of, and we just didn't. And that's the fun thing about coming out of this game with the win is that we have so much room to improve and get better coming on to next week and coming on to the season ahead of us.
We'll go over here to the left, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, for both of you, you were two of the few veterans that played tonight. What was it like trying to integrate those guys? Obviously, there was some growing pains. How do you think you guys progressed throughout the game?
Well, I think for the most part, just really, we got to lead. And, I mean, we're picked as captains for a reason. And so the way we lead, everybody will follow. And so really, like I said earlier, it's new faces, but we still got the same defense. And like they always say, we reload.
Yeah, to stand. Go ahead. I mean, he pretty much answered. I was just going to answer because I thought I had to.
We'll go last question for these two. Very back, Clay Hall,
That same
WSYX.
play, how can that bond the defense? How, the evolution of this defense?
Yeah, it's. I mean, we just, like I said, we just got so much room to get better, and we all know that, and we're all excited to get better and to play and just to play better and continue to grow. Like you said, a lot of guys who don't have that much experience. We had started 2 corners who didn't have very much game reps, and that's something that it takes time to get used to playing corner, and they balled out. All our corners had a good game, and same with the linebackers who didn't have a lot of reps going into the game, and they balled out too. And just to know that this is the starting point, and like I said, we came out with a win against a good Big Ten opponent is exciting for our defense to know that we have nothing but room to improve.
Right. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Zach Haskell, really
Thank y'all.
appreciate your time. Folks, we're going to bring up Lathan Ransom now.
I need a bag of ice.
Yeah. We'll open up the floor. We'll go to the Tony Gerben, Buckeye Scoop, and then Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com. Tony?
Lathan, when you were watching that replay, were you prepared to be thrown out of the game, or what was going through your mind?
Honestly, I didn't feel that it was targeting. I think I left my shoulder, and I didn't go high. But I wasn't thinking that. I was really thinking if it was a fumble or an incomplete pass.
So it wasn't even in your mind that they could have been looking at targeting or anything like that?
I didn't think so, but that's just my opinion.
Over here, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com. Over here to the right here. Like,
You had the opportunity to get on the field late last season to kind of get your feet wet a little bit in some big games. You had 2 guys starting at cornerback tonight who didn't have that opportunity. This was really kind of a fresh debut for them. What kind of vibe were you sensing from them before the game, and then just how do you feel like they played?
I think the same vibe that I was getting too, because this was my first start, so a little anxiousness, a little nervousness, but it's nervous because we care so much. And I think they handled themselves well, especially for being their first start, especially Denzel. I mean, true freshman out there, really did his thing, I think so. I think Warren Watts had a big play, that huge tackle on that 3rd down, and I think they both played really well and handled themselves really well.
over here, front row left, Austin Ward, Letterman row.
Lathan, it seemed like a couple times that Seven was going out there and it looked like he really just wanted to be back on the field or had some words for you guys. How tough was that for him to miss? What was he telling you guys?
It was definitely tough. He was giving advice to me, Ryan Watts, and Denzel throughout the whole game, just helping us, giving us tips of what he's seeing and stuff like that. I mean, Sev definitely wanted to be out there just as much as we all did, so I think it was definitely hard for him.
Anybody else? Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, Lathan, you guys were rotating a ton tonight, a lot of guys on defense. Just what's that like for you as a defensive player when you're going in and out of a lineup and you're playing with different players on basically every series?
I think that our defense has so much chemistry and is just building. We rotate so much at practice, and I think that when you go in, it's just you make the best of your opportunity, and when you're not in, you support your brothers, and you hope that they do their best too.
One last question for Lathan, front row. Patrick Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Lathan, we were just talking to Haskell and Zach about the fumble and touchdown, but did you feel similar momentum shift on your play? That once they reviewed it, that kind of started to change things as well a little bit later in the game? Yeah,
I think definitely Haskell's scoop and score. I think that definitely changed momentum. I think my play also did just a little bit. I mean, the offense was rolling throughout that whole quarter, and I think it definitely shifted momentum a little bit.
Lathan, thank you very much. Congratulations on the first start.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to bring Mayan will be our last interviewee of the day. Mayan Williams coming up to the podium right now. We'll open it up over here to the right. Stephen Means with Cleveland.com. Over here to the right there, Mayan.
Right here. Mayan, how are you feeling after you had that 71-yard touchdown in the opening drive?
It's like, it felt like a dream at first. Then I was like, just got to keep going. But it felt amazing, though.
So then when we don't see you again until maybe near the end of the first half, I guess, like, when you have that type of momentum, do you feel like you want to get back on the field as quickly as possible? And what's going through your mind? I mean, you just had a 71-yard touchdown, and now you're not playing.
Yeah. I feel like that's what, like, everybody, like, if you get a big play, you'll want to go back in. But I was really just, like, wanting to see everybody else play and how they play. I was trying to get the win.
Right behind him, Adam Rittenberg, ESPN.
Yeah, man, how can guys like you and others who have played more, whether it's the receivers or tight ends, help a guy like CJ as he's just finally getting in there?
Just got to, like, keep him in high spirits, keep the energy good, positive.
And how do you think that went tonight just overall with him first half to how he played in the second half?
I think, like, at halftime, we really came together as a team. Was like we can't lose, so we just got to keep going, find a way. That's what we did.
Over here to the left, Austin Ward, Letterman Row.
Mayan, I think every running back I've ever covered says that they need a bunch of carries to get in a rhythm. But you didn't have that luxury, still were performing pretty well. If you start getting more, will you be more comfortable, or are you fine with the way the workload worked out tonight?
I'm actually fine with it, like how it went tonight. As long as we got the win, I'm good.
Right behind him, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, we know you've got a very deep room to see Trey do what he did on that swing pass. And Tony Alford said he's had those wow plays in camp. When he got that swing pass and started to go, did you know that's a score?
Oh, yeah, definitely. He definitely had some more crazy plays in camp, definitely. But, yeah, when I seen him, I was like, yeah, he going to get him one.
Right in front of him, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Mayan, on your 71-yard run, you got to the edge really quickly and really ran away from everybody. What happened on that to get you so much green space?
To be honest, it was actually the wrong play. It was the wrong play, but I mean, it was just crazy.
How was it wrong?
Huh? I was supposed to go the other way.
So do you have to change the playbook now and set it up that way? It seems like
Nah, we just got to fix it in practice.
Why did you switch then?
I mean,
Or did you go the wrong way?
I was just in a rush trying to get the ball played, trying to get the ball snapped. Yeah.
Time for one more question.
Well, it looked like all the blockers went in and you went out, so it was almost like they faked the defense. Is that what happened? Were you supposed to go inside?
Now, I was actually supposed to go to the left, and I ended up just going the opposite side. There wasn't nobody over there.
What a play. Can I just ask you real quick? The play before that, you go up the middle. It looked like you slipped. It looked like you were about ready to take it maybe to the house up the middle, and Coach Alford was screaming at you. I was standing on the sideline. He's like, mad that you missed on one right there. Just what happened? Are you thinking about that you got to get one back on the next play?
Nah, I mean, if you have a bad play, I just like leave it in the past and focus on the next play.
All right, Mayan, thank you very much.
Mayan, what's
Appreciate
your
it.
40 time?
I don't know.
Good job.
I did, Jerry.
Even 20 minutes of interviews, guys.
Five or 10 free minutes, Austin, before you get going? About 5 minutes. Yeah, that's your enough.
You'll yuck it up that you need to see the second half.
Still raining out there, Dave? No, feels like you need a tunnel shot. All right.
All right, we just got to hear from the Buckeyes, head coach Ryan Day, quarterback CJ Stroud, running back Mayan Williams, defensive lineman Zach Harrison and Haskell Garrett, safety Lathan Ransom. I think that's it. Tony always makes it look so easy when he does that, but yeah. So that was your rundown. Buckeyes win by 2 touchdowns. Turns out Vegas knows, as Mark Givler says on his podcast. Vegas, in fact, knows. Vegas had the spread exactly right. 45-31, the final score. Joined by Tony Gerdeman now. Tony, do you want to do the best of times or the worst of times first? Because this is a tale of two Ohio State football units. Which would you like to do first?
Well, Tom, the thing about the first game is there's a second game that comes shortly after. So, yes, there was some bad in this game, but if you look at it optimistically, it has to eventually get better. Of course, we said that about this defense coming in, that it can't be as bad as it was last year. And yet, there are some issues, and what's it a product of? They played so many different guys, and they're young, as Ryan Day said. I think he gave plenty of good reasons. I don't think anybody buys it in terms of it shouldn't be happening.
Right, it shouldn't be happening, and there are. I mean, let's go through a couple of the reasons why. This does not excuse everything you saw tonight from the defense, but you're playing without Sevyn Banks, you're playing without Cam Brown, Josh Proctor goes out at one point. At that point, you're missing probably 3 of your top 4 defensive backs, and that's, of all the units on the team, maybe the one that's got the biggest question mark to it. So I think to a certain degree, you can sort of maybe have a reasonable expectation that there's going to be improvement there. Did Denzel Burke get a start tonight? He was the start. So you have a true freshman corner starting. That was, during when we talked about the pregame, that was one of, it was like, well, I don't know who's going to be in that rotation, but it's almost certainly not going to be Denzel Burke, because that's not reasonable to expect a true freshman corner, no matter how much you're hearing positives during camp. You can't have a true freshman corner out there for his first game. And then they had a true freshman corner starting his first game. So, the good news is it sounds like Sevyn Banks is maybe coming back. Cam Brown is maybe coming back. And with Denzel Burke, if you're starting as a true freshman day one, that learning curve is going to be pretty steep at some point. It might not be next week against Oregon, but a month from now, you may have something you didn't have tonight.
Yeah, and Minnesota went right at him. They attacked him. He got 1 pass interference call, had 3 pass breakups, looked very confident, would celebrate as most quarterbacks do when they make a good play. But it's interesting to hear so much about him as soon as he got to campus, and then to see it continue. Like, gosh, he started an opener. I was trying to think of who the last true freshman to start at corner at Ohio State, and I go back to Malcolm Jenkins in 2005. He started about 6 games that year. I can't remember anybody
Jeff Okuda.
He didn't start though.
He didn't start the Cotton Bowl. I mean, he started the
he was
Cotton
he was
Bowl.
part of the rotation though. Right?
Okay.
He was the number 3 corner.
Yeah, I think he started.
Although
the
he may have started.
I think he
because
started the Cotton Bowl
Ward
after
was
Denzel
out.
Ward opted out, but
no, I don't. We'll see. We'll see.
Maybe. But either way, that's shocking to me to see him out there. And we were going through before the game and kind of saying who else is going to play in addition to Seven Banks, because we were sort of assuming Seven Banks would be back, because it was sort of presented as if Seven Banks would be back, and he wasn't on the unavailable list today. And Ryan Day, he said he would have been available in an emergency, which there were times that it was like that could be emergency adjacent for the Ohio State defense. But the question was, okay, who's going to play behind him? And we named a whole bunch of names, and the answer was everyone. Everyone's going to play tonight. You saw Legend Cavazos out there. You saw Ryan Watts out there. You saw Denzel Burke out there. You saw Demario McCall out there. I mean, it was just like everyone was out there. I don't think we saw Ja'Kalen Johnson or Jordan Hancock, but that's 4 guys who are probably your 3 through 6 cornerbacks, and I mean, this was a good team for them to play. You don't want to necessarily have cornerbacks 3 through 6 playing next week against Oregon, because that's something that Joe Moorhead will find a way to go after. But this was a way to, 1-0 is 1-0, and the old coaching cliche: the teams improve most between the first game and the second game.
Tom, if the rain helps the receivers, is it okay to cut the corners a little bit of slack?
I don't know that that's what I would chalk it up to. I mean, yes, the rain does help the receivers. That's something that you kind of hear, and the reason behind that is that the wide receivers know what they're doing, and the corners have to react. Which then, if the field is slick, that creates. You have to respond, and you have to respond more suddenly, because you can't plan your movements the way a wide receiver can. So that's why that's true. But I mean. There were issues that looked like they would have been issues on a dry field tonight too.
Well, for me, the more concerning issue of the pass defense was the lack of a pass rush.